All right, so basically, just to cover the fact that we had a massive lack of ideas about today's theme, Adam picked a wide range of topics that we're gonna simply discuss and react to today, of what we are expecting for this year, and things which gonna happen or may happen.
So, do you know what
Okay.
an NFT is?
I know it's not a cryptocurrency,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
well,
It's similar
apart
technology.
from I read it in English. I didn't understood. I read it in French. I even understood even less. So no, I honestly fungent. I
Non-fungible
think
token. So,
yeah.
I'm probably going to explain this badly. So, thank God we have Korean in the chat here. He's going to correct me because I'm going to say that I'm going to give everybody the completely wrong idea. But a fungible something that's fungible is something you can exchange for an equivalent value. So basically, money. So you can say like, oh, okay, I can exchange this $1 bill for another $1 bill, or I can exchange it for uh, you know, $1 worth of whatever. Whereas some things you can't really put values on in the same sense. So, for example, I can't walk into a store and show them my phone and be like, okay, I want to give you this phone, and in return, I want to buy 8,000 coffees. You can't do that. You can't just leave your phone at the counter and buy things with it. So that's kind of what fungible, non fungible is basically something that you can't exchange as currency. And so the idea is, if I'm understanding it correctly, these non fungible tokens are basically certificates of authentication in a way. So, for example, if you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way I understand it is, for example, I have this cloud right here on the Fenrir. Okay. And so he's sitting there back there. And when I got that for the collector's edition, then was it the people that make that model? Was it Play Kai Arts? They had just gone out of business. So they only made so many of these, and there will never be more. Now, this is common for collector's items. And what you might do, for instance, like if you have a coin or something like that, a lot of times you might have some sort of certificate that says, this is an authentic blah, 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 blah. So for example, if you were to have a baseball card or something like this and you were to sell it in an auction, if you have that certificate, then it verifies, yes, this is authentic, yes, this is real, and that adds value to the item. Whereas if I just show up with this over here, but they can't authenticate that it's number 8,423 out of a 10,000 series, it's not worth as much. So having that certificate of authentication increases the value of the object. Now, the thing with non-fungible tokens is that these are effectively, it's something that authenticates yours in a series. But the thing with online things is, so for example, in real life, the factory that creates this is, they shut down. So those molds, I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they were sold, maybe they were destroyed. But in theory, there's never going to be more of these. Now, on the internet, you can just right click, copy, paste, and you can have a new thing, right? So there is no issue with limited numbers. And so that's the idea with these NFTs, is that, okay, if I create, say, a picture, or I create a video or something like that, and I put an NFT on it, then you could copy and save it, but anybody can do that. But if you have this certificate, it basically says you have an official version of it, and therefore yours has value. So because you have an official one, not just some knockoff, if some factory in Vietnam or China or wherever gets a hold of the molds for this, they can make more of these, right? And those ones, if they're made with the same molds, might be completely indistinguishable from mine. So they look exactly the same. But the fact that mine has a certificate with it, you know that mine's one of the official ones and theirs is one of the knockoff ones. It's not an official one. So if you went to auction and I have that certificate, they're like, oh, this is a real one. This one's worth more. Whereas if you have the second run ones that were made, you know, in a Vietnamese factory or Indonesia or wherever, then people would say, oh, this one doesn't have as much value. And even though they're identical, the only way to tell the difference is the fact that I have a certificate and this other person does not. And arguably, I could even exchange this one. I could buy one of the newer ones, and then say that the ticket is, you know, so it's not actually the item itself that has value. It's the certificate saying this is unique that has value. And if I understand correctly, that's what an NFT really is basically saying you have a certificate saying that yours is official in a way. And so, yes, anybody can copy this picture and anybody can have this picture, but mine is official. And that's
So it's like
it.
so it's like a digital stamp,
It's a digital
seal,
receipt. It's a digital
like a
receipt, basically.
seal of approval.
Yeah, basically that's how I'm understanding it. And I might be wrong. Korean hasn't said anything in the chat, so I think I'm right so far. Because I think he would tell me if I got it wrong. But that's basically what it is. And so now you have a lot of these games. So you have a lot of these games, like for instance, so that I think that's where a lot of people get confused, is because a lot of people are saying, you know, this is stupid. This makes no sense. This is, you know, I can just copy this video or I can just right click and save this file. So, you know, oh, you have an official one. Who cares? And I think for your average person, that's exactly it. Who cares, right? I don't care about authenticity. I just care about I can look at I can look at the photo. But for collectors, I think that's the appeal, is that there's a market for these people who are like, I have an official one and I know it. So it's like a sense of pride in a way. So for your you know, it's kind of like a baseball card. If I have a baseball card, it doesn't matter if it's rare or if it's common. To a kid, it's just a baseball card. That's it. Nobody, they don't care. You know, they're like, hey, I got a cool baseball card, whatever. But for an adult, they're like, oh, this one's rare. This one's worth money, right? And for most people, like if I walked up to you and I was like, hey man, I have this $10,000 baseball card of Nolan Ryan. Do you want it? And you're probably gonna say no, right? You're like, I'm Canadian, or I'm from France, and I'm Canadian. I don't give two rats butts about baseball. It's just a piece of paper with a dude's picture on it. It has no value to me. But to a collector, it does have value, and I think that's the idea behind NFTs, is that to some people they have value, but to your general population, yeah. So in both instances, I think in some ways both sides are right. I think some people are right in that these are inherently stupid and they don't have value. But I think other people are right in that, you know, they can be worth money because it's the same as any collector's item. It's a Beanie Baby, right? To somebody, it's worth a lot, and to other people, it's worth nothing. And I think
Yeah,
that's,
forget that.
yeah, we get lots of bots in the chat recently. I just keep blocking them. But I think that's the idea. So, for example, in the was it the president or the some guy high up in Square Enix basically came out recently and he said, we want to create NFTs in games. And okay, the president of Square Enix came out and he says, you know, I see a future in NFTs in games, and a lot of people are like, this is stupid. There's no reason to do this. Why would you ever do it? But then I guess the idea originally was, so I think there's different ideas on what people are expecting with this. And one of them is, you know, maybe we can make a limited number of things in game. So for example, right now, if I want to play Final Fantasy 14, I want a certain gear set, you know, I want a certain look, I can go on the store and buy it as a microtransaction. But with an NFT, what they might do is make a limited number of those. So they're like, we're only going to sell 1,000 of these. And if you don't buy one of the original 1,000, then you just can't get it unless you buy it from somebody else who already has it. So you can trade it with somebody else. So that's the idea, is you can get items and trade them. Kind of like back to Ready Player One. If you've seen the movie, the girl is building. I mean, we don't know she's a girl at the time, but oops, spoiler alert. But she's building an iron giant, right? And she's building it for somebody. Okay, so she even says, she's basically modding the game, and she's making this mod specifically for a client. They're paying her for this mod, right? And nobody else is going to have this Iron Giant. Only that one person could have it. Now, in a game, it'd just be as simple as copy and pasting the code, and then you could have thousands of Iron Giants, and everybody could have their own one. But in Ready Player One, she's building the one, and she's going to sell it to somebody, and then that person is, in theory, the only person that's going to have it, unless of course she makes another one. And I think that's the idea behind an NFT, is basically you can verify I own it. I own this. So if there's any question about whether you should be allowed to have it or shouldn't be allowed to have it, it's like I should be allowed to have it because I have the data or whatever right here that proves I own this. These other people, they don't really own it. And so I think that's kind of the idea in these games, is something similar to that. Maybe not necessarily exactly that. It might be more. So for instance, you can put NFTs on your characters, so your character can be an NFT. So your character has a value in a way, and you're like, yeah. So so basically, it's just for collectors. It makes something a collector's edition, basically.